Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Monday to all of you on YouTube and IGTV. I was going to change to look a little more professional today, but I am indeed wearing my Rune wine t-shirt from the winery in Sonoyta. So if you watched my videos when I did my little Arizona tour thing, Southern Arizona, and we went to Sonoyta, one of the places we went to was Rune Wines, and they were my favorite. So I bought a t-shirt, of course, and it's very comfortable. So not changing today. This is what you get, and I hope you like wine too. All right, well, you're not here to talk about wine. That's another channel. But I do have an update, and in today's market update, I want to talk about something that is super interesting and a little bit different. So we have some things changing on the horizon. I talk about the CMI every week, and I always reference the overall CMI for Greater Phoenix. But the fact of the matter is, that is different in various cities. So, we can talk about Greater Phoenix as a whole, but every city reacts and behaves a little bit differently. And we have a couple cities that are making some changes. And so I want to make sure you guys know about that because they are quite a bit different than the overall CMI. So let me start first by talking about the overall CMI. So today we're sitting at 436.3. If you don't know what the CMI is, it's from the Cromford report that I follow. It's the Cromford Market Index. It's a measure of supply and demand in our market, and anything above 110 is a seller's market. That's the Cliff Notes. If you want to know more, look back at another video where I explain it a little bit better. But 436.3 is definitely high on the Cromford Market Index, definitely still a seller's market. But keep in mind, we've been decreasing week after week after week. So that number has been going down quite a bit, which indicates that our seller's market is weakening. The difference is, it's really hard to tell a difference in temperature between 512 and 436. They're both still very hot. If you're living in Arizona, you know that this week is going to be hot as heck. So I told my husband yesterday, I was like, the good news is once it gets over 112, it all feels the same, right? So looking at those numbers of 115 and 117, I'm like, it'll be fine. So that's what we have to look forward to this week, which is a little bit early, unfortunately. But anyway, 436.3 is high, but it has come down. And so when we look at both the supply factor and the demand factor, we're looking at demand being 7.2% above normal at 107.2. That's kind of stayed the same, which is good. Our demand is still there. And our supply has been increasing over the last month or so, which is really nice to see. It's at 24.6. Which I think it was like 22 about a month or so ago. So it's definitely increasing, which is great to see. We're seeing some more homes come to the market. It's nothing significant, but it is a trend at this point because it's been happening for a few weeks at a time. But here is what I'm here to tell you about. We have two cities that are definitely moving away from being a seller's market faster than any other cities in the Phoenix area. And so if you have a house you've been thinking about selling in these areas, you may want to start thinking about doing it sooner than later if these trends continue. Those two cities are Levine and Glendale. Both of them have CMIs that are decreasing very quickly, faster than the other cities within the Greater Phoenix area. And if these cities continue to decrease at the rate that they've been going, they're going to be very close to being in a balanced market as soon as August or September of this year. So who knows? I mean, things could slow down, they could stop, they could go crazy, go in a different direction. But if things continue to decrease on those CMIs for the next few months, by August or September, we're going to be pretty close to balance in those cities. And so as a seller, you are not going to have multiple offers and the level of demand and interest that you might have right now. So if you have a house in Glendale or Levine and you've been thinking about selling it, you may want to make a decision sooner than later. And let me know if you're in that boat. I can give you a good idea of value for your house. I can give you some more stats on your zip code or neighborhood and help you make a better decision on whether or not now you want to sell. Okay, so that's that. Gilbert is another place that's having some significant changes, and not to the extent that Glendale and Levine are, but there has been some interesting changes in Gilbert in that their demand has come down quite a bit. So demand is actually below normal in Gilbert. It's at 80. So that's 20 points below normal if normal's 100. And keep in mind, Greater Phoenix is around 107. So 80 is pretty different than 107. And I think part of that is because Gilbert has been so hot for so long. Likely buyers have gotten a little burnt out in that area, and prices have increased so much there. Maybe the normal, laws of economics are taking place, and buyers are just deciding Gilbert's not an affordable place to be anymore. And with that, we're also seeing some increased listings in Gilbert. So we'll see what happens with Gilbert. It's interesting to see how that has changed a little bit. So those are some really important things I wanted to share with you guys because if you are in Glendale or in Levine, now you really seriously might want to start thinking about selling. There are other cities as well that these trajectories are going down, but we're still looking at, maybe the end of the year at the soonest if it continues on this pace. Again, I'm keeping a close eye on this stuff. If there are any cities or areas in particular that it's like, you better sell now or it's going to be in a buyer's market tomorrow, I don't think that would happen. But, if there's any red flags or indicators towards going in that direction fast, I'm going to let you know, because I know many people are kind of following to make sure that they don't miss the boat on selling their home, maybe waiting till the peak of price or something like that. So that's interesting stuff. I also wanted to talk about supply rising because we've been seeing that quite a bit, which is great news for our buyers. In mid-February, it stopped going down and started to kind of stabilize and then started to rise. And since mid-February, our supply has increased by 23%. So that's a pretty huge increase since February. Keep in mind, though, it's still 46% below where we were at last year. So it's not high by any means, but at least we've come up since February, and it's come up pretty quickly. What's interesting about this increase, though, is that it's not a seasonal increase for us. It's very unseasonal. Right now we're usually seeing supply go down in the summer months, and so seeing an increase in supply at this time of year is definitely different. It kind of indicates that we're probably seeing some stability come to the market. So that's a good sign. In terms of price ranges, so in the price range of 300 to 400,000, we've seen an increase in supply by 29% since February. In the price range of 400 to 800,000, we've seen an increase in supply of 67.5% since February. And in the price range of 800 to 1.5 million, we've seen an increase in supply by 32% since February. So all of that is good news for these price ranges. Some have seen more supply come into play than others, but either way, we're seeing a little bit more supply, so it's good news for buyers and good news for just a little bit more stabilization in our market. Another thing I wanted to mention, last week I talked about accepted contracts, and I said that they were low and we're going to have to see what happens with that because that might change. Well, they're back up this week, so that is not a trend, or at least at this point, not a trend that we need to watch. So all good there. And then also talking about sales prices and sellers markets, we have seen an increase in our sales price versus list price ratio. And I've mentioned this before. It's very high. It's never been this high before. We're at 102%. Back in January, this number was 98.9%. So what this is our sale price to list price ratio, or sales price versus list price. That means that sellers are getting 102% of their list price, so 2% more than what they listed their property at. And like I said, in January, that average, or I think it might be a median, was 98.9%. And now we're at 102%. But what's interesting about this is looking at closed sales. So that means that when these properties got under contract, it was likely about 30 days ago on average, because it takes about 30 days to close a sale. So even though we're sitting at 102% now, that's reflective of what our market was like 30 days ago. So it'll be interesting to see in a month if some of these changes with the CMI are going to actually change what this sale price to list price, or list price to sale price ratio turns out to be. If that's going to go down next month, I'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. But those are kind of some of the big developments this week. We need to keep an eye on the CMI, especially in some of those cities like Glendale and Laveen. And we've got more supply, so let's keep an eye on how much more supply is coming to the market, if it's consistent or not, and just the overall CMI trend. It's still going down, but it's pretty slow. And it's also, our demand is staying normal. So that's really slowed us down. Keep in mind, demand is above normal. It is not, it's not below normal. Demand is not the thing that is forcing our market to be the way that it is. It's the lack of supply. So even though we have more demand than normal, it's not astronomical. It's come down quite a bit since the beginning of the year, and it's not the driving factor in our market here. It's the lack of supply. So anyway, I feel like sometimes I beat a dead horse. I talk about a lot of the same things, but that's essentially what's going on. There's not much more I can share other than lack of supply in this market. But hopefully those updates are helpful for you. I thought some of that information is interesting. I'm really interested to see what happens with Glendale and Laveen. If you are considering selling in either of those areas, or if you have a home in a particular area that you've kind of been like holding off and waiting, and you're curious what the CMI looks like and the trend and that kind of thing in your city, please let me know. I'd be happy to share that information with you. So you can either reach out to me by call, text, or email, or click the description below. There's a link to set up a time to chat with me. You're welcome to do that too, whatever you'd like to do. And if I can answer any other questions for you, you can reach me any of those ways as well. So thank you for watching as always. I'll be back with another update next week. If you live locally, stay inside, stay cool. If you have dogs, make sure that it's not too hot for them to be outside, and take a walk late in the day or early in the morning so you protect their paws. I have to give a shameless dog plug. Anyway, thank you for watching and have a great week.